Shields up, Iron Breakers. Rurikhan here coming at you with another video, and today we're going to be talking about Hand of Fate 2. And you guys might be wondering, why are we talking about Hand of Fate 2 now? Didn't that game came out like last year or something? And yes, you're right, but it also has been released recently on the Nintendo Switch. And as such, the company behind Hand of Fate 2 actually reached out to me and asked me if I wanted to check out the game. And considering that I've been curious to check out Hand of Fate and I just never really got around to it, I was like, yeah, sure, why not? So they sent me over a review code so that I could check it out, and I've been playing it pretty much since yesterday. And I gotta say, I got a little bit of a mixed feelings in regards to Hand of Fate. Now, from a port standpoint, because like I said, this game has been previously released. So far, I haven't had any issues with it. It runs at a steady 30 most of the time. No real problems. Whether you're in combat or you're in the table with the dude that's got the cards and stuff. Like, the game just runs fine, and it seems like a pretty decent port. It comes with some included DLC. As a matter of fact, before I started recording the video that you guys are watching right now, I actually was able to redeem like an additional companion that wasn't available from the beginning. So, you know, it's got like the previously included DLC. I think all of it. At least I didn't see any DLC that I could buy. And it is Hand of Fate 2, so if you know what Hand of Fate 2 is, this port is running pretty good. But anyways, for those of you that do not know what Hand of Fate is about, I think I would best describe it as a tabletop game with action combat. And when I talk about action combat, the thing that most reminds me of this kind of combat is like the Batman Arkham, because you got like a bunch of enemies coming at you. You can press, what's the button on the friggin'? You can press Y to attack. I'm sorry, it's just like I'm usually more used to the DualShock 4, but you can press Y to attack your enemies, and your character kind of like, you know, it kind of moves in the direction of the enemy that you're aiming for, and your hits will generally land. And every now and then, the enemies will attack you when you will see like a green flashing icon. That means that you can actually perform a counter. So you will press X and you will counter the enemy's attacks. If, however, what their attack is flashing red, you can't counter it and you'll have to dodge it by pressing B. So that's kind of like the gist of how the combat works. Now, there are a couple of nuances here in the form that if you're able to string together a certain amount of combos, you'll be able to perform a special move by pressing the right trigger. This special move is, I think it gives you invincibility frames while it's happening. And I say I think because a couple of times I've been hit while I've been doing the special moves, where other times I'll have like two people attack me at once and my special move still goes through. So it's kind of weird. And if you hit enemies enough, they can become like staggered, and if they're staggered, you can perform the finishing move by pressing the left trigger. That's kind of how combat works. But having said that, this game does not explore dungeons like in a traditional way. So you're not like just going through a dungeon crawling through and killing enemies. No, like everything that involves traversal and just like genuinely the adventure bit of it, the non-combat sections of the game, is handled from a tabletop game standpoint. Now, this involves the usage of cards and dice, and there's even mechanics that I haven't seen yet. Like, I've seen some reference to a wheel of some kind that I haven't seen. So it's basically a bunch of tabletop mechanics. So for people that enjoy tabletop games, I think this is going to be very appealing. It's a bit of a mix of, again, with the action combat and the tabletop gameplay. It reminds me of a lot of things. Like, it reminds me of Dungeons and Dragons, for one. Now, I haven't played Dungeons and Dragons in years, and even when I played Dungeons and Dragons, neither me or my friends were particularly adept at, you know, doing the whole Dungeons and Dragons thing, but we still had a lot of fun with it. And the reason why it reminds me so much of this is because there's a lot of storytelling happening through the form of text. You're not necessarily seeing the story happening in front of you. It's just like, hey, here's this card, and here is what's happening right now. Like, the game will describe, you're in a tavern, here are the options, here are the things that you can do, and then you pick from those options. And then depending on how your actions are perceived and the end game, sometimes even certain mechanics like throwing a couple of dice, you know, there will be different outcomes, which can sometimes lead to combat. And whenever it leads to combat, then you will go into the action combat mode, which you guys will no doubt see throughout this video. And if it doesn't lead to combat, you will receive things like you can receive health benefits by health benefits. You can receive like a health potion. You can be healed. You can receive equipment. You can get like rings. You can get swords, shields. You can get a bunch of stuff. You can get gold. And as you go through the game, you'll also be able to purchase this equipment from several cards. It's kind of complicated to explain. So there will be cards. Each of the card is like an encounter. And so, for instance, you might find a card that's a general store. And if you get the general store card, you can just go in there and buy equipment for yourself. But whenever you start an adventure, because each of the chapters, so to speak, of this game is like its own self-contained adventure. And whenever you start an adventure, you basically start from scratch, minus like the potential modifiers that adventure might have. So like, for instance, right now in the game, I'm in the third adventure, chapter, challenge, whatever you want to call it, right? And whenever I start that particular adventure, my companion gives me like 20 food or something, which is more than usual. So basically the modifier, I would say, for that particular adventure is you would get 20 food. I assume that different adventures or challenges, you might get different modifiers added to your party, depending on how that goes along. But you still start from scratch. So basically you're going to have like a crappy sword, a crappy shield, and a crappy piece of armor. As far as I can tell from what I've played so far, that seems to be like how you always start. So you want to kind of build up to buy the equipment every time. And so as you progress through these events and you either gain gold or lose health or whatever happens, you'll eventually be able to like buy special weapons and buy special shields, which will make things a little bit easier in that particular adventure. But again, at the end of each adventure, you're going to start from scratch. Now, the cool thing, the cool mechanic about this game is that whenever you complete an adventure or whenever you complete a specific challenge in one of those adventures, you're going to unlock more cards. And that's kind of like what makes this game be different every time you play, even if you're playing the same chapter. Because what's going to happen is whenever you go into an adventure, there's like, from what I can tell, again, this is very early impressions, there's like a pre-built deck. Right? There's a deck of cards that are the events that will take place in that particular adventure. And then you will be able to shuffle a couple of your own cards in there. So say, for instance, hey, I found this card that's a general store. You'll be able to put that in there, and then if you're lucky, you'll be able to land in the general store so that you can buy stuff. Or maybe you have another card that you really like that maybe gives you additional health, or maybe gives you you know, some kind of an encounter where you get some advantage. And those will be shuffled in the middle of the other adventure cards. And then as you are navigating the board, you will be able to have a chance to get that card. Beyond just encounter cards, you'll also be able to shuffle in equipment cards. So even swords and shields and axes and armor pieces, all of those are cards, and you'll be able to shuffle those in together with the rest of the adventure cards. But then the problem with this is as you are unlocking all of these things, and it's a lot of fun to unlock all of this stuff and to experience all the different encounters, the problem becomes that there is a ton of RNG. So if the game is working out in your favor, then you can have really good fortune and you'll be able to breeze through an adventure. If, however, the game is not working in your favor, and I gotta tell you, in the third adventure, it hasn't been working in my favor so far, you are going to have a really tough time. So here's an example, for instance. In the third adventure, you guys will no doubt see this in the video that is going on right now. In that third adventure, there's a lot of blizzard cards. So whenever you go into a blizzard, you're going to just straight up take damage. You just take damage. And then it's like, okay, there's a 50-50 chance that you can fail or that you can succeed. Now, if you succeed, you'll be able to navigate the rest of the blizzard without taking any more damage, and maybe something good will even come out of it. But I have failed so many times. And again, it's like they give you a choice of 4 cards. And so many times my choices landed on huge failure. And what happens then is like you take even more damage or enemies spawn. I've had at one point where just like 10 enemies spawn. Now it's like, Jesus Christ, killing 10 enemies in this game is not the easiest of things because you got to keep track of a lot of attacks that are incoming your way, and whether those attacks are the green kind that can be parried or they're the red kind that you have to dodge. And also you got to keep tabs on how many times you can attack. There is just, again, a lot of RNG to it, but ultimately there's also a lot of variety to it, and you can even do the same adventure multiple times and have different outcomes. And some of the cards will actually advance every time that you complete them. So here's an example. There's a card which is an arm wrestling card. And whenever you land on that card, you go to this arm wrestling event, and you basically arm wrestle someone. So the first time you'll arm wrestle... Damn, I'm just stuttering like an idiot. You'll arm wrestle someone, and there will be like a weak opponent. You'll throw a couple of dice, and you'll just win a little bit of gold if you're able to succeed. And then the card almost like levels up, so you get the next version of the arm wrestling event. So you will be able to get more gold, but you will need to roll the dice higher because your opponent is stronger. And that card continues to evolve. Now, there are many cards that do this kind of stuff. So for instance, I also have a companion card, which they give you at the very start, so that you have a companion when you go into combat. And it's just an AI. He throws out a couple of fireballs and he puts a shield around you if you want to. And that AI character has his own story, and as you are doing the regular adventures, you might take cards that advance his storyline. So basically you can go into his story and you can kind of like advance it. And every time that you advance the storyline, you unlock a new card that grants you access to more, and you'll be able to learn more about that particular companion. So it's a lot about unlocking stuff and repeating some of the content. Now, having said that, I haven't repeated any of the content except when I failed, because you have to repeat this stuff. But there's a lot of variation in there with each iteration that you go through, if that makes sense. So all in all, it is a game that I'm enjoying quite a bit, but I do feel like this is the kind of game that I'm going to enjoy in short bursts, which again actually makes it the perfect kind of game for the Switch, because you can just go in, play it a little bit, exit out. You know, you can get some progress in a short amount of time, which is good for portable play. But the reason why I say that is because personally, I don't know about you guys, but I tend to get really frustrated when RNG screws me over, and it's happened a lot. In this third adventure, the amount of times that I've gotten huge failure on the Blizzard card is insane. Insane. But anyways, if you guys think that this gameplay might be interesting to you, then I can recommend the game from what I've seen so far, because it seems like it's a whole lot of fun. It's just, again, just be aware, there's a lot of RNG to it. Anyway, what do you guys think about Hand of Fate? Let me know in the comment section below. Thank you very much for watching the video. If you guys enjoy my videos, hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, and remember to hit the notifications bell as well, because YouTube apparently wants you to click all of these friggin' buttons in order for you to actually receive notifications from people's videos. Once again, thank you very much for watching. 2 video suggestions for you. I'm out of here. Peace out.